Are you a fan of a bad NFL team? Has your NFL team either started 1-0 and 2-0, lost 6 in a row, lost 5 in a row? Maybe your fantasy season sucks. I don't really know. You know what, guys? It's a new day as we're at week 8. Can you believe that we're already at the 8th week of the NFL season? But anyway, guys, I got Matt Beast with me. We're here because, look, we're going to talk about week 8. We're going to talk about some other NFL stuff. But as well, too, we have some fan therapies, which we're going to get to when we get to our games. But, sir, how are we doing this evening?
Well, we're doing better than the Saints season right now, so that's going good. So I have that going for me, I guess. But yeah, everything's going good. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Oh, I appreciate it. Always good having you on. So the big thing with this part of the season is there's been so much weird chatter within the league of like, already who's this favorite, who's this person, like who's favored to do this. And I'm just like, guys, we still have so much football to talk about that where you can't really get into those schematics, I think, until like week. I don't even want to say a week until Thanksgiving, until your Thanksgiving, really, because our Thanksgiving passed a couple weeks ago.
True. Yeah, it does. You're still kind of getting into the season. You're pretty much a little bit past that 25% mark. Starting to kind of see some teams' identities and going from there, and we're going to see who the true teams are here real soon.
That's exactly it. It's who are the real teams. As I got Thursday Night Football in the background. And I got between you and I and the viewing public for this, I've got a Justin Jefferson parlay on the line tonight. So we'll see where that goes.
Oh,
Yeah, but it's the same thing too. I feel like with NFL this year, but as well as college football, where I think college are starting to establish kind of the who's not the who's who, but who's going to be there come late December, January. But the one thing I'll say is with college, Texas truly had that. Like, how they say that welcome to the big leagues kid. Texas
mhm.
had a welcome to the SEC moment last
Oh
Saturday
yeah,
against Georgia.
for sure. It's been a wild couple weeks in the SEC with all these teams just beating each other. Even my Razorbacks kind of getting in on it with beating Tennessee. That game was crazy to see. I was excited to see them get a win like that. Funny enough, their last top 5 victory was against Tennessee way back when. I forget what year. Off the top of my head, I want to say it was 93, but they were talking about it on the broadcast, but I've already forgotten since then. But yeah, exciting stuff in college football with all these teams just beating each other. And I feel like those teams don't have that necessarily that huge sense of urgency over them anymore, where it's like, oh, I lose a game and I'm screwed.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
of the larger pool.
Well, the larger pool, but also too, you have this feeling now where one loss is no longer, hey, must win. Like if 2 losses is no longer the death sentence, it's 3, which we saw Alabama get last Saturday. Like that's the thing with them now, to where I love how everyone's like, oh, this, but I'm like, you guys had it so good for so long. First year, did you really expect to be as good as what you were previously? You lost some players to the NFL. Isaiah Bond's obviously with Texas now. But I feel like with that too, like Georgia's, I would say, is the favorite, but I feel like there's still not a clear cut, um, really who's going to be the person, like the champion at the end of the season. Like I said, Georgia's the favorite. But the other part about this is all cool too is that there's a game tomorrow night between Boise State and UNLV that means a hell of a lot more. Which 2 years ago that game would not mean diddly squat.
No, that is true. And I mean, I need to sit down and actually watch a Boise State game because watching I can never say his last name right, but um,
Gentry.
yeah, Gentry, fantastic running back. I'm actually tanking in my dynasty league, so he's definitely up for consideration between him and Tet McMillan from Arizona or Luther Burden from Mizzou. But yeah, that guy's been lighting the league on fire, kind of bringing a notoriety to staying at that small school when all these other players want to go off and go into the transfer portal and go to a bigger school. He decided to stick it out at Boise State, and he is he's having a special year, man.
Yeah, the thing with Boise State though is that their games are always on at just these, like they're always like 10 o'clock at night. They're always like not in that prime window. But like even the thing with college football too that I love right now is the fact that like something like college game day is a good way to judge on how a school's doing. Like the fact that look, Cal got it, Indiana is getting it this Saturday. I know everyone's like saying, "Oh, you could have done Navy Notre Dame." I feel like for years with College Game Day, they would always just rinse and repeat and go to the same schools constantly. So it's always good when these like not random, but like these schools that like, hey, they're finally doing better, like in Indiana, are getting the recognition where ESPN's bringing this huge production and then going there. Like I remember I was talking to Big Rat because obviously the Cal Berkeley one was when Miami was going there, and their students were basically there for I think it was like from midnight or 3 in the morning all the way till 9 a.m. for the taping, and then the game was at 7 o'clock that night. So just the fact that there's such that long window just felt super weird to me. It's like what they did Oregon 2 weeks ago, which that's another team as well. The Oregon Duck. I know everyone's saying like, some teams haven't adjusted. Like, look, UW's having a down season that was expected. Sorry, Alex.
Yeah.
USC, UCLA are kind of like here. Oregon's the one team that's really adjusted to it all. Like, where it's like the travel's not a problem and they're playing good against really good competition.
Oh yeah, they've been pretty good. I haven't watched too much of Oregon this year, to be honest with you. I know Dylan Gabriel. I know he's been putting out some good stuff and been making a name for himself.
I have a take on him though. Good
What's
college
your take?
quarterback. Good college quarterback. I don't think he'll be a good NFL quarterback.
There's definitely a lot of those out there. We'll have to say I can't really speak to it myself, honestly, too much. I haven't really looked into any of the quarterback sides of things as far as my quote unquote scouting for dynasty purposes, because most of the time I just kind of get the chance to watch a couple SEC games here and there. But for the most part, I don't really get too much of a chance to watch a lot of college football. I do watch some, but it's mainly like an SEC game or the Razorbacks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same with college football too. Like, honestly, I watch more College Game Day than I do college football, but that's just because, look, it's on Saturday morning, and then if I have to go out and do something during the day, Saturday, it's not as killer because I'd rather miss my Saturday than miss my Sunday. I just wanted to talk
Mhm.
college ball with you because I know it's like it's a bit of your wheelhouse too and everything like that. But before we
Yeah, a little
dive,
bit.
yeah, but before we dive into the NFL, my wife actually had a question that she asked me because basically we were talking about states like that, and she wanted me to ask you this. I just wanted to, not she didn't want me. She was wondering this, so I figured I'd ask you because like we were talking about this earlier. Is Arkansas landlocked or is it on water?
It is definitely landlocked. There is,
I
I mean, where you have Louisiana down below us, which I live really close to Louisiana. Um, I can't think off the top of my head anymore. Mizzou up north, Missouri. We kind of got Tennessee and Mississippi right there, and then we also have Texas next to us and Oklahoma next to us. So we have a bunch of states kind of all around us.
I understand. I understand. Just basically, what was I going to say? Um, so okay, boom. He answered the question, folks. So now I know, hey, that Arkansas is landlocked. Got it.
Yes.
Understood. Appreciated. But anyway, guys, we're gonna dive head first in the NFL. We're gonna let our therapies come once we get to our games. So we can talk about the games, talk about the teams, because the first game we're starting off with Cleveland versus Baltimore, which has a new feel. Look, I know a lot of people look the Deshaun Watson situation. I'm not going to view whether to approve of the not even approve or disapprove of an injury for the love of God, but it's more the fact that look, whatever happened to him, it's unfortunate. It is what it is. But Cleveland, you got to learn to move on. Meanwhile, then you got a Baltimore team coming off of a 6-day rest where they looked really good against Tampa, which we'll get into Tampa in a little bit. But for this game, like when I think of it, I don't know if Cleveland's going to win, but they're too big of an underdog to where I believe it's 9.5 or 8.5, excuse me, to where I'm just like, I think they can keep it close, but not like win the game,
Yeah, I mean, Nick Chubb just came back, so they have that going for them. They did trade off Coop recently. Um, I honestly, I do think they're honestly. I mean, it sucks to say because the dude just got hurt or whatever, but I think they're going to be better without Deshaun Watson, low key. Um, because I mean, that contract, you got to feel for Browns fans. I mean, they just went out and gave this guy all the money, all the guaranteed, and he just has not lived up to it. He's been hurt constantly. Um, you got to kind of wonder if all the stuff that he went through and all the allegations against him, and then signing with this team and then having such a long period of time where he didn't play, you just kind of wonder if his heart's really in it anymore. He just leveraged his money to be able to go out there and do it. And I mean, of course, some people are going to argue against that. Like Jameis definitely would if everyone saw that clip of him.
I've
Jameis
seen
is
the
definitely
memes
a
more time
guy.
than the actual clip.
Yeah, for sure. Jameis is definitely a guy you want on your team. That is a locker room guy. Like I've just heard really glowing things about Jameis in the locker room. Of course, he was with the Saints for a while. Um, he definitely uplifts his teammates whenever possible. So um, I think it's addition by subtraction for the Browns. But as far as 9 points, that is a pretty generous total for an NFL team right now. But I would almost take that over just because the Ravens are on such a high right now. And I mean, you could see them come on it down. You never know. And I mean, it is a AFC North matchup, and some of those teams in division rivalries can tend to play each other harder. But I mean, the Browns, just the way they've been going, the fact that they already gave up their number one wide receiver, um, Nick Chubb still coming back, and Jameis is just now getting out there starting. Who knows how many first team reps he's even had at this point. But I mean, if they're going to have a fighting chance, it's going to be Jameis kind of leading them there. But honestly, the way Lamar Jackson has been playing, it's just unreal. So I would probably honestly go with that and see if they go with the over, but who knows?
So, yeah, that's the thing. It's coming right here right now. The over-under is only at 44.5, which I really like. I'm still going to go with my original prediction, though, that Baltimore wins, but Cleveland covers the number. Just keep it plain and simple, all that stuff there. Because there's not really much more to talk about this game. Like, Baltimore looks really good. I don't think it's much more Baltimore coming down. I think it's more about Cleveland rising up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Kind of like they're in a vulnerable spot. When you get teams in a vulnerable spot, that's where they're kind of unpredictable. Like this next game, we've got the Houston Texans playing the Indianapolis Colts. You and I haven't spoken since the NFC preview show on here, and I've come up with an expression. I call it the Anthony Richardson experience. I'll enjoy it from afar. I don't want anything to do with it on my team. You can have him, Colts. I don't want to be him to be my quarterback because I feel like for him there's so much potential, but at the same time too, you get so much of this like unknown factor with him. It's kind of like, like cool. I'm gonna stay over here. I'm gonna enjoy me. You do you. And then you have a Houston team where CJ Stroud's had his moments, but he's also had these moments where he hasn't looked like fantastic. Like he looked good against the Patriots, which look we'll get into, but a lot of people looked good against the Patriots this year. And then last week, his stat line was the next day's date and numbers 10 for 21 on October 20th, 10 on 10/20. So it's one of those things there with him where it's just like, what CJ Stroud are we going to get? I feel like with Houston too, they kind of fell into this trap where everyone was giving them unrealistic expectations, which I worry about for Washington next year. But with Houston, though, I feel like they'll be fine. And I think this is the game they bounce back because they kind of seem to do this where they'll have like a down week and then an up week.
Yeah, that is true. But I mean, across the league, I feel like offenses are down. You're seeing a trend more towards a run centric approach for those teams that are doing well. You're not necessarily seeing the quarterback just elevate the team up. Granted,
Totally strong
having
fantasy.
Yeah. Granted, having that good quarterback is going to help you in those game winning drives.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's kind of a zig when the league zags because the league has been focused on getting their defenses faster, so the linebackers are smaller and more agile. So teams are looking more towards actually ground and pounding the ball because it is a viable strategy.
Yeah.
Ironically enough, Jim Harbaugh came into the league. I'll get into that later, actually. But yeah, I mean, Joe Mixon just came back. He was hurt for a while. He's been lighting it up when he's on the field for the Texans. For the 3 or 4 games that he has played, he's had some pretty good games. And it's just, like you said, you don't really kind of know what you're going to get out of CJ Stroud. And Anthony Richardson, the experience thing, that's definitely a thing. It's just wild. He had those good few games where he kind of flashed some potential.
Yeah.
I saw a tweet on Twitter. I still call it Twitter, not X, but someone had called him like the like the Zach Wilson of Cam Newton's.
Oh my
Or
God,
something like that. Yeah. Yeah, that was a pretty vile tweet. So you just gotta, if you're a Colts fan right now, you just kind of want to see some positive things out of A Richardson at this point, and hopefully see him do better.
Yeah.
I mean, he was such a raw talent coming in. They kept always saying, "Oh, he played like only 14 games in college or something like that." And of course, he did. He was a good college quarterback, and we do wonder how it's going to transition to the pros. And he's such this physical kind of specimen guy, kind of like Cam Newton was.
Yeah.
Where he can just use his legs and stuff. And you would think that maybe, hey, that would transition well with Jonathan Taylor and this transitioning to a run league, but you do have to throw the ball sometimes, and you do worry about Richardson. So, and if he can stay healthy, I mean, he just got hurt already, and I mean, that's why they went out and signed Flacco, because Flacco showed that he still has that good capabilities of showing what a good backup quarterback could be.
Yeah.
So you just want to see something positive out of Anthony Richardson at this point in time. But I would definitely go with the Texans easily on this one to me.
Yeah, so like for me, I'm doing the same. Like I'm going for the Texans to win this game because, like, look, if you look at their weeks last week, they lost a heartbreaker in Green Bay, and Indy beat a very down bad Miami team, which we'll get into them in a bit. The one thing with this game too is just it's a true game for both teams to kind of show the league. You know, some people say loser leaves town, get right game. This is really a who are you game. Like, we're gonna find out more. Like, hey, who are the Houston Texans? Who are the I almost said Baltimore Colts. I'm really going in my bag there. Who are the Indianapolis Colts? One thing with the Colts though that I can't get over is I don't know if you've ever seen him on Twitter, but there's this guy that every week sings the most harmless not even victory, but the most harmless like hype songs in the world, where he's just like such a big Colts fan that he just loves his team and sings these songs. I don't know if you've ever seen it. I'll send it. I'll find the clip and send it to you because it's honestly just it's so wholesome that reminds you that there's a lot of good people in the NFL community. But yeah, ultimately, I got burned by this pick week 1 when I picked the Colts to beat the Texans, and I'm not making the same mistake twice. So I'm going Houston all the way. Green Bay is traveling to Jacksonville to take on the Jags after spending 2 weeks in London. I was about ready to pick Green Bay, but then a buddy of mine messaged me saying, "Is Green Bay a trap game this week?"
I mean, you could see it.
Like,
The
Green
Jags,
Bay should smoke them. Why is it only -4?
yeah, that is true. You would think that maybe they should smoke them. I mean, I'm looking at the past Jags games now, just off the top of my head. They've had some close games, minus the. I mean, the Bears game was a little out of reach for them, and the Bills game. The Bills, I do remember the Bills walloping them on Monday night. And I mean, you just got to think that their head coach is definitely on the hot seat.
Yeah.
There's been some regression there with Trevor Lawrence. Um, there's definitely been some regression where you think maybe this Jags team could have been turning a corner coming into this season.
Yeah.
But, it's kind of gone the reverse, and I mean, sometimes that just happens. But you really could see it being a trap game because any given Sunday in the NFL, another team could surprise us. That's why they play these games every Sunday.
That's what this game is. This game truly is an any given Sunday. Anything can happen at any given time because you have a Green Bay team who's really established themselves as like, hey, they're good. They're like
Jordan Love's a baller.
Jordan Love is a baller. Like Green Bay you guys are so lucky to be able to go from franchise quarterback to franchise quarterback to franchise quarterback. It's the bad thing is that there's only 2 Super Bowls in a 30-year period with truly iconic quarterback play. But for a game like this, I'm going to still stick with Green Bay, but it would not shock me if the Jags won. Does that make sense? Or it's closer than people think.
That definitely does make sense. You could see it being a little bit closer than people think. I'd probably lean the same way, sticking with Green Bay. I'm definitely a fan of Jordan Love. I think he's a really good player. And just the fact that they took all these young players, and I mean, people still talked about it from last offseason or last postseason, with them being one of the youngest teams to ever get into the postseason and go
Yep.
win a game. The fact that it really does speak to their organization and how well run it is. Like you had said, going from quarterback to quarterback to quarterback now, um, and all these years of just winning games and constructing a good roster. Um, these past couple of weeks have really put things in perspective for me. Of, hey, that's really important.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly that. Just overall roster construction and just putting the right pieces in the right places to have success.
Mhm.
So Detroit in recent weeks has clowned Dak Prescott and to a degree Sam Darnold. They now get Will Levis without DeAndre Hopkins, obviously traded to the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday because the rich like to get richer, the fatter get
Mhm.
fatter, or the fat get fatter. Um, but the spread for this game is -12. Do we think? Because I still think this that like look, and I'll say this as well. Speaking of SEC ball from earlier, Brian Branch has really come in the league and established himself. He's becoming a really good cornerback. Detroit's defense was a struggle point last year, but it's doing well. And this was without I was supposed to say Adrian, without Aiden Hutchinson as well. If you're a Detroit team that's serious about winning, you do not let Tennessee make a game out of this. You play Tennessee, you play them hard, and you run them off the field. You say, "Welcome to Detroit. We're going to whoop you. Now get out."
Yeah, that is true. I do wonder. I mean, obviously the DeAndre Hopkins trade, that's going to be,
And Calvin Ridley on the injury report.
yeah, Calvin Ridley's on the injury report. I mean, Traylon Burks, my guy from Arkansas, just
Can't
hasn't
stay
done
healthy.
anything. Can't stay healthy. Can't stay on the field. Um, feels bad, man. But yeah, I mean, I just really don't know what you're seeing. I mean, I guess at this point, if you're a Titans fan, you're just looking to see Will Levis show something. Um, but I mean, it's just they're kind of that meh team.
Mm-hmm.
That I feel like they always have been, except for whenever they had Derrick Henry. Um, and even when they had Derrick Henry, sometimes they're just kind of like that meh team. That they're there. They've always seemed kind of gritty in some ways, but it's just they're just kind of there, and that's just how it kind of feels. And um, you do wonder where they're going in their direction. But yeah, the Lions, they seem like they're full steam ahead. You do wonder with the Aiden Hutchin injury, um, if maybe you could see them maybe going for a trade. Maybe they do a big splash trade um, in the middle of the season for another pass rusher. That would be interesting. I've seen people throw out, hey, what if they go out and trade for Max Crosby?
I've seen that too.
Yeah. I mean, that would be pretty wild to have Max Crosby there on the Lions. And when him and Hutchinson are there, that'd be a crazy duo. And I mean, it definitely wouldn't hurt for them to go out and get someone like that.
So I've seen those rumors too, and Aiden Hutchinson's like it was like his best case scenario was like, oh, he may be able to play in the Super Bowl if they get there. Which
Yeah.
I'm just like, you're setting yourself up for a $30+ million payday. Like he's gonna get like what we've seen the likes of like Max Crosby get, what Nick Bosa got, what Micah Parsons probably will get somewhere other than Dallas, for obvious reasons. You're going to see him line up to get that giant, enormous payday this coming off season. So if I'm Aiden Hutchinson, just take the rest of the year off. Don't even think about trying to get back. Even if the Lions are in the Super Bowl, I know that's a once in a lifetime thing, but long term, think about your long term future in this league. You have the potential to be. He was on a Defensive Player of the Year thing. I had him circled. His odds were high. It was like plus 1100 to win the award, which I was almost tempted to throw some money on. I didn't, but it was one of those ones where I looked at it and I'm like, he can win this award. He's really establishing himself as a bad MFer in this league. I don't think they go out and get a trade because I think Dan Campbell believes in his guys in house. I think going out and doing a trade like that is just kind of like, let's just say stupid teams do that. And I feel like Detroit has enough confidence. And what confidence does have as well as all these guys that Dan Campbell and his philosophies install to where it's like, oh, hey, you're not good enough. So we have to go out and get someone else. And also just with cap and everything like that structure, I don't know if it would work. Plus, Max Crosby has, I know he's a Michigan boy, but he's got the Raiders logo tattooed on him. He doesn't want to go anywhere else.
Yeah, you do have a point there, but I will throw out, hey, if they want Chase Young, hit us up.
That's a move that I think would be better. That's a more beneficial
Yeah.
move for them as opposed to Max Crosby. It's kind of like I've been hearing the rumors tonight, just with the game on behind me with Vikings Rams, where if the Vikings are serious about contending, like trade for a Matt Stafford, especially if the Rams go down the toilet, which right now they're at 2-4. There's the Cooper Kupp trade rumors, which we'll go from there and see what happens. But ultimately, you have teams where it's like you want to make a move to be serious, but I don't know if trading for Max Crosby is a needle moving thing that the Detroit Lions necessarily do. If I were them, I don't really know. I feel like they're a team that's like fine. There's like no real flaw I see with the Honolulu Blue wearing Lions.
Yeah, if anything, it would make more sense. Like I said, the Chase Young deal. If they went out and got like a cheaper defensive lineman, maybe a guy that's on a 1-year deal.
Yeah,
That way they can pay Aiden Hutchinson, just to kind of supplement that into their pass rush with what they are losing with that injury. Because I mean, when you are a team that has this roster constructed, sometimes you just want to go for it. And I mean, look at how the 49ers are this season. Those windows can close really quickly for some teams.
yes.
This isn't the Bill Belichick Patriots dynasty. It just closes sometimes on some teams.
Which we'll get into in a sec. But going back to the game, I think we both have the same mindset where it's Detroit should win handily.
Yeah,
It should be a
definitely.
2-touchdown victory. This is a game of intrigue for you, but Tampa Bay versus Atlanta. These two teams met 3 weeks ago on Thursday Night Football, and what I'll honestly call this right now is probably the best Thursday game of the year. This game was good. There was back and forth. Obviously, Atlanta won in overtime, and now Tampa goes in this game. Mike Evans out for the foreseeable future. Chris Godwin done for the season. I have two pros. I have a pro and con to say for each of this. The pro, thank you for Tampa for playing hard to the end. You won me fantasy football with Baker Mayfield as one of my quarterbacks. But the con is who's your best weapon now? Apparently Bucky Irving's not even playing this Sunday. So apparently he's out with a toe injury. So this game right here, I don't think Tampa's totally screwed, but after what I saw from Atlanta last Sunday, this game screams Atlanta bounce back. +2. If you want to bet, these two teams put up over 60 points last time. So I feel like 45.5 is a low total.
Yeah, they definitely are going to have issues with after the Chris Godwin injury and Mike Evans is hurt. How do you know off the top of your head how long Mike Evans is hurt for?
I'm going to pull up their schedule because I know it was something along the line. It was like something, some length of time. Something. Griffin's looking it up on the fly. So they play the Chiefs. Oh, they have fun schedule. They have the Falcons, the Chiefs, and the 49ers. So have fun with that. But then they have their bye week 11 and week 12 at the Giants, I think is what I heard was his best. That's like the best case scenario, earliest time frame. So it's like, that would be, 4 weeks he's gone for. So that's November 24th. So, and then their stretch run is Panthers, Raiders, Chargers, Cowboys, Panthers, Saints, so right now they are sitting, you're probably hating hearing me talk about this right now because we know how much you love the Bucs, but they're 4-3 right now. So say if they lose Sunday, but then next Monday night's a game, I feel like that Todd Bowles knows how to play Patrick, and if he can shut him down, that's a potential upset spot for the Chiefs, for the Buccaneers. And then look, even if you're 4-3 right now, even if you're 4-4, 4-5, 5-4, Giants, Panthers, Raiders, Chargers, Cowboys, Panthers, Saints, there's only really maybe one or maybe two games in there that I can see you losing.
Yeah, they have a really easy schedule towards the end, but they are getting hurt probably at the worst time for them.
That's it, though. So basically, what they're in the position to do is they're going to play basically the whole month of December. They're going to have to play must-win football. You're playing playoff football throughout the month of December.
Yeah.
I was always on Tampa Bay to win the division, but I think now it's Atlanta's to lose. And this is the kind of, but this is the thing with Atlanta too. This is the kind of game that if you're a serious team, you do not let squander. They're undermanned. Atlanta too, I think, is believed getting some people back soon. I know they've lost some offensive linemen throughout the year, which their offensive line is really good. But yeah, like I said, This is the kind of game that if you're Atlanta, you win. For fantasy owners out there, I feel like everyone's kind of realizing, yeah, don't go the Kyle Pitts route. You're just going to get hurt every time. But I'll say this though, you're not going to like this, but I think not for running back ones. Bijan Robinson is in that category. I think you know what, all the hype and everything like that. He's getting used properly. It's worth it. Even though Tyler Algier is still there, it's a nice compliment to Bijan.
Yeah. Yeah, he's been putting up some good numbers, and Drake London's definitely emerged, having having
I
Kirk
was on
Cousins
that
there.
train all off season. I said to people, draft Drake London. He's been doing great for me in one of my leagues.
Yeah, he's definitely shown up. So that's promising for them. Um, but yeah, I feel like you said, it's kind of the Falcons to lose with the Chris Godwin injury, because Chris Godwin's been having a good year with Baker. And then on top of that, with Mike Evans being out the next four weeks on some of the harder games of the year for them. So that's definitely going to be something that's rough for them. And I mean, the Buccaneers, they had a strong defense, and that carried over. And getting a scrappy guy like Baker there at quarterback, I mean, it's kind of nice. Not nice in the fact that it's the Buccaneers, but it's nice to see these quarterbacks that didn't necessarily have the best situation go somewhere and actually do good, like a Sam Darnold is right now. Um, but yeah, it's just going to be hard for them to overcome those two injuries to their two main wide receivers. I mean, one of their main guys is going to be what, Sterling Shepard
Yep.
at wide receiver. So you do question it and how well it's going to be. But yeah, it's definitely going to be the Falcons to lose. You just wonder if their defense is going to hold things together. That's the big question mark for them. So yeah, I'll take the Falcons this week.
Yeah, like I say, this is I want to see what Tampa Bay's depth chart at receiver is, just out of curiosity. Because look, with the injuries, so you have Jalen McMillan, you have Trey Palmer, you have Cade Otton, you have Sterling Shepard, you have Ryan Miller. Cade Otton's good too, and then even here too, you're probably going to have Sean Tucker and Rashad White running the ball. So yeah, I think the best way for basically, it's one of those games where if you're the Falcons, like I said earlier, you're the Falcons, you want to prove you're a good team. You don't let games like this slide. It would be very typical Falcons to lose this game. It's just, I think from what we've seen this year, they've managed to bounce back after some bad games. So yeah. New England versus New York. Honestly, for me, there's not really fan therapy because I've kind of accepted it. And also, too, I just know the fact that next year we have over $130 million in cap to spend, and the fact we have a franchise quarterback, which feels really great after the last 3 seasons. I can't complain. I'm a Drake May guy. I like what I've seen from him. I think he's looked really good. There's been no complaints from Griffin on that one. It's just, look, there's a lot of our fan base that doesn't know how to accept what's going on. You know, it's like when you'd say something where it's like, basically, it's like you go to see Joker 2, and everyone's told you this movie's going to suck. And you don't take that advice. You're like, no, it's going to be fine. And then you walk out of it being like, why'd I watch that? That movie was terrible. I've never seen it. Jared convinced me to cancel my tickets, which I did. But that's basically what a lot of the fan base has been for New England this year.
Yeah, I know there's a whole lot of stuff going on with the comments your coach had made at the podium and all that good stuff. I'm sure that's an annoyance to hear about.
Can I actually say something about that?
Yeah.
I love how it basically was. So he basically commented this whole thing on, like, oh, the team's soft. And everyone's taking it as like Belichick took it as like, oh, these players aren't soft, this and this. No, he's just making a genuine statement of, hey, we're not playing hard enough. You're in the National Football League. You have to play hard. You're playing soft. Mm-hmm. This game, though, on Sunday, before you say anything, I just want to say it's so hard to predict because on one side, you have a team who clearly is just there. It's a rebuilding year. You have all this stuff. And then you have a team basically that if they lose this game, it's not put a fork in it and say it's over, but it's pretty much from here on out, you have to win every single game down the stretch.
Yeah, that is that's definitely a thing for the Jets. I mean, man, what a oh man, the Jets.
By the way, Danny was supposed to be on here, but he did not feel like he does not want to talk football right now.
Oh, I mean, I don't blame him. I mean, they're kind of all in right now, and I mean, they went out and got Devontae Adams. It's like, hey, we've been losing. Let's make our fan base feel better and go get Devontae Adams. Let's go get Rogers' neighborhood neighbor
Yeah.
from Monte
They're living
Adams.
together right now.
I believe it. Yeah, they had to bring him in, and I mean, Alan Lazard is a guy who's there, and he's been obviously kind of pretty good for the Jets. And of course, you got Aaron Rodgers throwing people under the bus, Mike Williams. Yeah, um, the Jets, they've been a interesting microcosm, and if they lose somehow to the Patriots, I'm sure you would be elated to see that happen, because that would be fire.
So, yeah, there's part of me that would love to see it, but, like, it's when I have a tough time reading this game, it's just because, like I said, this is the kind of game that you can see New England winning, where it's like they've lost 6 in a row, they've looked terrible, this, and that. They got called soft, they got called out. And then you have the Jets, where it's like the last time the Jets looked really good, guess who it was against? It was against the Patriots week 3 on Thursday Night Football when we got carved 24-3. So, honestly, I have no idea how to gauge this one. I'm going to go Jets just because I feel like, look, at the end of the day, they are the better team and they are the team that wins this one. That being said, though, I would love to see New England win. But like I said, this season, the only thing I really care about at this point is just Drake May's stock rising. That's the only thing I care about, because the next offseason, you can build a system where it's like, hey, come play with our great quarterback instead of last year where there were so many question marks and no one wanted to come here. So now you can kind of lure people to come here on the precipice of this is an upcoming team and they're doing better. We'll get into the whole why is Washington and Chicago playing the way they are and why New England playing the way we are. It's because, look, at the end of the day, we know who the true rebuilding team. There's rebuilding in the NFL, and then there's blatant dysfunction. People want to label what's going on in New England as dysfunction. No, it's year one of a rebuild, and not a lot of people are ready for it.
Yeah, that is true. I'm definitely interested to see. I would assume the Patriots go out and draft a wide receiver in the first round.
I'm going to
Um,
comment on that. I've seen a lot of
okay.
people talk about Travis Hunter. I'm
Mhm.
going to say this right now. That would be irresponsible. This team needs offensive line play, and there are 2 SEC boys that I would love, love, love to see.
I can
So,
definitely get behind that.
Kelvin Banks and Will Campbell. Those are the 2 guys I want to draft. Although, if New England really wants to, I just look, because I look at this with the NFL. Free agency is for when you want a player. The draft is for when you need a player.
Yep.
You know how you've seen it before where it's like we've seen what happens when people you draft a player for the sake of drafting someone. Look at what's going on in Carolina right now with Bryce Young. David Tepper wanted the quarterback and he saw what he thought was the best one, and look where they are now.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, though, with New England, like, hey, you have a quarterback. I'd rather them go spend the money on an established wide receiver in free agency and develop. Because why? Because Hall of Fame or all pro caliber tackles and linemen don't grow on trees. We know that. There are certain positions that
Yep.
look you have to draft and develop. The other thing with New England, I wouldn't mind them doing is if they get number 1, doing what Chicago did 2 years ago. Get a team that's stupid enough to trade up, that's desperate enough for a quarterback, the New York Giants, to where you can get them to give up some draft capital. You get them to, hey, we'll give you our pick this year, plus we'll give you 2 1s next year. Do what Chicago did to Carolina. Not to that extent, because I don't think there's any other GMs that are that stupid in the league. But all in all, with New England, look, it's kind of that, it's like the acceptance point in grief where you've accepted what you are, even though every Sunday I'm going to get up and I'm still going to get pissed off when something doesn't go our way. That's just because I love this game.
Yeah, that is that's definitely a thing there. Like you said, the main thing is just seeing Drake May continue to grow as a quarterback and hope for the better things. And definitely, and like you said, getting an offensive line would definitely help that. So that would definitely be a priority. If you're saying that that's what they would need is to get an offensive lineman to shore up that, and maybe Polk becomes something down the line. I mean, you already have a solid kind of target catcher with Demario Douglas there. Um, so yeah, but yeah, at the end of the day, I do agree with you. Seeing the Jets win this one is probably what's going to happen. I agree with that.
Yeah, that's what I think. This is the game where the Jets kind of get back on track. Where it's like, oh, hey, it's like when you see like a cart on like the train on the tracks and it's kind of like wobbling off, and then like the train just keeps on chugging and rolling. Miami and Arizona, and I have one video game for you. Black Ops 6.
Oh no. Is it the stat where he always like a lot worse when Call of Duty drops?
I have something. No, so that's double XP weekend. But I
Okay.
sent this to Danny earlier today because I told him to basically look. I'm going on Arizona. I'm going against Arizona this week because of this. But Yahoo Fantasy Sports earlier today did a thread. Does Call of Duty really affect Kyler Murray's fantasy production? We pulled Kyler's pre and post COD releases fantasy splits by year. 2019 was Modern Warfare. Before the game came out, he was averaging about 19.61 points per game. That fell to 17.78. 2020 Cold War, he went from 30 points a game to 18 points per game. 21 Vanguard, 23 to 20. Modern Warfare 2, he went from 23 to 17. Mind you, the Cardinals were terrible that year. And then last year, look, obviously before Modern Warfare 3 came out, he wasn't back from the ACL yet, and he was only averaging 18 points per game. So I believe it. I believe that when Call of Duty releases a new game, which look, I will get at some point, as I'm now the proud owner of a somewhat new PS5. My friend's getting a Pro, and he sold me his old PS5, and I've been playing college football on
Nice.
it. Yep, I started my dynasty on college football with a obscure Big Ten team, but that's just because I didn't want to go with the powerhouse. Northwestern, by the way, we're 3-2 at 4-2 at the moment. What I'm going to say about this game too is just because everyone's gonna be so worried about Tua, I feel like people, and also here's the other thing as well. It's Arizona coming off of a big win. They're 3-4 right now. I have faith in them. Danny has faith in them. You don't bet on Kyler Murray when COD comes out. You know he's going to be playing it at midnight. You know when he gets his paws on that game, he's going to be locked in. And then when double XP weekends happen, you certainly as hell don't put money on him either. So for that reason too, I'm going to say this as well because this is right here is Miami season. This is a game right here that if Miami loses, their playoff hopes basically go down the drain. This is a must-win game for the Miami Dolphins. So that's why I think with Tua coming back, you go Miami.
Yeah, it's they've definitely been hurt without Tua out there. And I will be interested to see how much better they get once Tua's back out there. Um I mean, I was looking at like the fantasy production for them last week and it was so abysmal. I was like, ugh. Because I think I was playing this one guy in my home league. He loves the Dolphins players because he's like a huge Jalen Waddle fan. He also has Tyreek Hill. Um, and it was just gross. But yeah, um, I do I do wonder. Marvin Harrison's kind of had some rough patches here and there with the Cardinals. Um,
He's super up and down.
yeah, he
Kind
had
of
a
he's this year's Bijan Robinson. You know, where everyone's like, he's going to come on the scene, he's going to explode, he's going to be great. Basically with him, he either has a game where he's getting like 30 points per game or he's getting like 4. There's no in between with Marvin Harrison Jr.
yeah, it's definitely a cause of concern a little bit, but I think it'll trend better. Um, yeah, I think I would honestly go with the Dolphins as well here. Um, it is weird how the numbers come out like that, and from
Yeah.
that article that you pulled. Um, it's wild how that can happen. Um, but yeah, I don't really have too much else to comment on, but I would go with the Dolphins here.
Yeah, no, it's just like I said, Call of Duty Black Ops drops in about 2 hours. It's around 9:50 Eastern time as the third quarter is about to start in the Thursday game. Um, but yeah, that's just like I said, Call of Duty, Miami season on the line. You take the Dolphins. Cincinnati versus Philadelphia. Um, this is another game too where I like look, Cincinnati's had their moments. They've won 2 in a row, but here's the thing. They've only beaten bottom feeder teams, and they're a favorite against a Philadelphia team who, let's be honest with you, they whooped the Giants last Sunday, 28-3. It was ugly. But with that being said, though, 4-2 versus 3-4. If you're the Bengals, I was thinking Philly, but if you're the Bengals, this is the spot to take them because you know what? They go to 4-4, pretty much can save their season right here. They fall to 3-5 from there. And also, that's the other thing I was going to say with Miami quickly, too. Their schedule gets a lot easier down the stretch. They have some bottom feeders they get to play. Like they still have to play Cleveland, they get to play New England again, and they get to play Vegas. But with the Bengals, after this, they play the Raiders, the Ravens, the Chargers, the Steelers, the Cowboys, the Titans, the Browns, the Broncos, the Steelers. So if you're Cincinnati, this is the kind of game that you got to get because you want to show the world that, hey, we're not as bad as you think we are.
Yeah, I think I would ride that Cincinnati train as well. I'm sitting here agreeing with most of the stuff you're saying. Honestly, today it's funny. Um, but yeah, I'd seen the Eagles play the Saints. I wasn't too impressed with them. They definitely made a lot of mistakes, granted, in that game. Um, but yeah, the Bengals, they've had a rough start to the season. I feel like that's kind of, I mean, I could be wrong. I feel like that's kind of a trend for them where they kind of have a slow start to the season and they got to get stuff kind of chugging along. Um, and that could be the case here. And this could be one of those games where they start to stack up some good wins. And this would definitely be a statement win for them to say, hey, we're going to right this ship and we're going to get things going. So, yeah, I agree with that.
Where do you stand with your football team? It's that time.
Hmm.
Just talk. Let it out.
Okay.
Inhale,
So,
exhale, talk.
I remember on our NFC show, I was pretty down on the Saints. So the first week comes and they beat down the Panthers. I'm like, okay, it's the Panthers. They're not good. I don't care. We still suck. Then we come out and destroy the Cowboys. This was before I'd kind of thought. I mean, obviously from the last season narrative, when you're in week 2, you kind of still going based off of last season. Cowboys were good last season. This season, not so much. So by week 2, I'd kind of reeled in my pessimism, and I said, we might be legit. And the Eagles game happened. Eric McCoy gets hurt. That's the start of everything. Eric McCoy gets hurt. Our best offensive lineman gets hurt. Jalen Carter eats our offensive line for lunch after that. And then the Eagles are able to get away with the win because our offense couldn't do anything that game because of offensive line struggles. And that was one thing I was worried about going into it. And honestly, the way things had went at the beginning of the season, I said, "Wow, this offensive line's actually giving Derek Carr some time to cook and play here." And we had the deep ball going and everything. And then lo and behold, over the next couple games, we have that close game with Atlanta with Koo kicking the game-winning field goal, and that was probably the point where things kind of went downhill from there. So many injuries. I think we're the 3rd or 4th most injured team in the NFL. Things are looking better for this week, granted, but I mean the injuries have been insane. We gotten to a point where we were playing a backup tackle as our starting right guard because so many people were on the offensive line was hurt. Granted, our left tackle and our right tackle had stayed healthy, and Penning has been pretty good. Our rookie Fuaga has shown promise, but our interior of our offensive line has been so hurt. They had no time at all, and Justin Jefferson's chain is blinging so hard in the lights right now. It's crazy. But the Saints, it's just been a very injury riddled season. Of course, Derek Carr got hurt. Our wide receivers, both Chris Olave had his 3rd concussion so far in the NFL. So he was out last week. Shaheed obviously got hurt. I think he had an injury. I think I was listening to a Saints podcast, and Mike Triplett had mentioned that in the history of the league, like maybe three
Jesus
people
Christ.
have had that. That maybe 3 people have had that injury. So it was just Rashid Shaheed, his injury. Had only 3 people had like his specific like fractured tibular or femur or whatever it was in his leg that got hurt. That specific kind of injury in the NFL, but yeah, it's been so bad on the offense, and now it's starting to hit the defense. Pete Warner's been out, and I mean that's not like the reason our defense has been awful, and that's been our identity. Our defense has been the thing you can hang your hat on. That's been Dennis Allen's MO is that defense is going to be solid, and it's been awful.
And what might get
And
him fired?
it could, and you might. Well, actually, it might not because you got Mickey Loomis coming out here saying, "Let's look past the results."
If here's the thing with that.
Yeah.
I feel like if they, because obviously, look, Carolina's the worst team, but if they finish with a, let's just, nice pick by was that Byron Murphy. Yeah, nice pick. I was also blinded by Justin Jefferson's light at bling as well.
Yeah.
If they finish with like a 5-12 record on the year, or even 6-11, you have to look at options. And here, because here's the other thing, there's a person in house you already have that you can just promote, because I know they like to promote within house. You can just you can make Clint the head coach. You don't have to do an external job search. I know it's the whole thing too. It's like, oh, you're finding in-house people, but Clint fits the mold. The Saints right now look like a team like, you know what? They're banged up. We're playing with a 5th-round rookie. It is what it is. Because I always said with the Saints, eventually with all the cap stuff, you either have to rip off the Band-Aid and be bad for a few years, just you got to live and die with what you have, or you go all in, you go balls to the wall, which right now I don't think they're in position to do, or they will do. I think the team that we see, I don't know if you're gonna like this or not. I feel like the team we see in 25 is going to look very different than what we see now. I think, guys, I think this is it for Cam Jordan. I've been hearing that vibe. I think it's just one of those things where he's older, he's accomplished, he's going to get his day where he gets his name. I don't know. We'll have to see about Canton, but he'll definitely get his name on the wall. He'll get his name in the Superdome. He'll be in there for infamy. Demario Davis is another guy too that you got to look at as well. Will he be there next year? And when I say this, guys, is it leaving? No, these are retirements. These are just straight up like, will they be playing football next year? Tyrann Mathieu as well. There's a lot of those like heartbeat thumper guys, leadership core guys for the Saints that you got to ask yourself, will they be playing football next year?
Yeah.
And that's just my big thing with them, is just where are they right now? Because they're kind of in a limbo purgatory where it's like, it's like accepting reality. It's kind of like you walked into a buzzsaw and you weren't mentally prepared for it.
And that's the thing. They've been operating under, hey, we can go out and win this weaker division. So let's keep building a team. So they went out and got Derek Carr. They kept Demario Davis. They kept Cam Jordan. They even just extended Alvin Kamara. And look, I absolutely
That was
love.
interesting to me.
Yeah, I absolutely love Alvin Kamara. He is one of my favorite Saints out there of all time. But that being said, we should not be paying an aging running back $12 million a year when we're at this point in our team building thing where we need to, like you said, all these people are going to retire. We need to look at the future at this point, honestly. And I think it is time for a rebuild. Derek Carr probably needs to go. I don't think he's the future. I mean, he could be, but I mean, he's older, of course. So you honestly need to start looking at that. And I mean, granted, that's kind of what they're trying to do with Spencer Rattler right now. But you put a guy behind such an awful offensive line. The only time he had even a more than a second to throw is when you're running boot action plays. It was when I was watching the Thursday night game. It was just boot action, boot action, boot action. Otherwise, if he's sitting there in the pocket, he has pressure coming in his face in 2 seconds. You can't do anything with that. I don't care who you are. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, you can't do anything behind an offensive line that's so porous. But that's why they said, hey, we're going to go with Spencer Rattler instead of Jake Haener, because he's going to have a little bit more mobility than Jake Haener does. But yeah, it's kind of at that point where I think it needs to be a rebuild. Going into 2025, we have by far the worst cap situation in the league. I want to say it's between 75 to 80 million over the cap, which granted, I have seen things where it's really easy for us to get under the cap. But that involves restructuring Derek Carr, which honestly I don't want to do because that means we're stuck to him for even longer. And I just don't know if he's going to be that guy. And I don't know if I'm to the point where we need a rebuilding Saints team that I want an older quarterback on the team. It's time for the Saints to go out and maybe spend a first round pick on a quarterback, something they have not really done.
Since Arch.
Yeah, it's that time to go out.
Excuse me, Arch is at Texas.
Yeah, it's that time to go out there and build something, build up for the future, get the cap cleared up. when we were competing, I didn't care. People always talked about the Saints and the cap. Mickey Loomis has always done a good job of using the cap and manipulating the cap to building a team that can compete. Problem is, we're not going to compete with anything like this. I mean, granted, I think the defense, like you were alluding to, Cam Jordan, he's going to need to retire. Ramchek's going to need to retire. He's never going to come back and play
Medically
a hide it
retired.
out. Yeah, medically retire. Demario Davis, it's probably time for him to go. Tyrann Mathieu could probably go as well. I would have liked to honestly see the Saints be sellers right now, or we're selling off people, as I was alluding with the Chase Young trade thing. But it doesn't seem like they're worried about that. I just worry about things. And I mean, Dennis Allen, he's like maybe the fourth worst head coach by win percentage for a guy who's coached 70 something games or something like that. Um, it just doesn't look good right now. And the fan base just wants to see a win. And this Chargers game, they're going to run all over us. Our run defense has been god awful. J.K. Dobbins is going to have a field day. Javonte Williams just had a career day for himself against us. All three of the Buccaneers backs were going off. It's just bad right now. It's just not good. But will we beat the Panthers the week after? Lord, I don't even know. You would hope so. If we lose in bad fashion to the Chargers and the Panthers go out there and embarrass us, and then Jameis maybe comes in in the Browns game and embarrasses us, Dennis Allen probably just needs to get fired right on the spot, honestly. I don't see that happening because Mickey Loomis doesn't seem like the type where he's going to fire someone during the season. And that was all. Wow. Maybe spoilers. Wow. I was just kind of left in awe by that play just now. But yeah, the Saints are in a bad way. The Chargers are going to destroy us. I think we're 7.5 point dogs or something like that. Maybe
7 on the
7 point
dot.
dogs. 7 on the dot. It changed a little bit from the last I'd heard of it. So yeah, the Chargers are going to beat us down. We're not going to be able to do anything. I just want to see, because I was kind of excited 2 weeks ago when Spencer Rattler was going to play, because I wanted to see
Oh my
rookie
lord.
quarterback go out there. Yeah, that's what I was alluding to.
But I need
I'm
him to
way
get
ahead
a
of you.
touchdown, though. I don't need him to do that. I need a touchdown. I need a touchdown and a Viking. So my parlay tonight was his over in yards, his over in receptions, a touchdown, and a Vikings win. And I need 2 more of those things to happen. 2 of them have happened: the receptions and the yards. Done. But I need a touchdown. So stuff Aaron
Maybe
Jones
he'll
here.
get a touchdown here on this. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Don't react.
So
You're ahead.
yeah.
So I'm just gonna touch on something. So you're talking about it. So right now there's 3 teams in the NFL that are currently negative cap. The Seahawks are 300,000, 301. The Cleveland Browns are negative 4.5, 4.6. And then there you guys are at negative 81.4. Meanwhile, at the opposite end of the spectrum for next year, there's us at 132.9. But look, I feel like every NFL, like that's the thing with every NFL team, they have to go through it eventually to where that's where I was saying the whole like, rip off the Band-Aid logic where it's just,
Yeah.
it sucks, but like it's something you got to do. The way also too, I'm going to point this out, and I'm looking at some of these teams. Washington, Arizona have both 121 and 118, and then the Chargers have 77 million. So those are teams that like watch out for them coming up. No, ultimately with the Saints, I think next year you just start anew. I think look, firing Pete Carmichael is kind of the first thing to go from the old regime. I think Dennis Allen. That's why I think you get Clint Kubiak, you get him to bring in his people to where the next year you can have him take his the quarterback he wants. Whether I know he gets some flack for some of the stuff he does, but like even a Carson Beck, I don't like. I honestly have no idea next year who's going to be top of the leaderboard. As damn it, I can't believe they missed that. Go.
The way I've heard things, it's going to be like you said, Carson Beck, Cam Ward, Shadur Sanders. Those are going to be the guys.
Shadur Sanders is going to pull some Bronny James BS, and I'm not ready for it.
Granted, I do think Shador will have more success than I expect Bronny James to have in the NBA.
Oh,
but
I'm just saying the whole
that's not saying much.
He's going to try to do like what Eli Manning and John Elway did, and like no one's going to have it fly. I'm going to say the same thing with the Chargers, this Chargers game quickly, as I've said about some other ones where it's like Atlanta. If you LA want to be serious, this is a game you win. You beat a team that's kind of down on its luck and everything like that. And yeah, it's just, it sucks, is what it is. Kind of, it's the whole, like, I feel like the same, you guys right now are where the Patriots were last year, where it's kind of like you think, hey, we're going to be decently competitive, but then you kind of stumble on your own feet and you end up being bad, and it kind of triggers, it's like intentionally triggering a rebuild.
My problem with it, and the one thing that pisses me off about it, is I was going into the season with this expectation. I was expecting to feel like this, but then they go out and have these 2 crazy games. I threw the first one out because it was the Panthers, and they destroyed the Cowboys. I saw it 2 in a row, so I said, okay, now I have some hope. The Saints gave me, hey, here's this present, and then it just blew up all in my face. That's pretty much what happened there. So I've come back down to earth. So, something crazy might happen and they're going to beat the Chargers and make me be like, oh, you know what? Maybe we're back. I don't know. But, and we end up having this crazy normal Saints season, as I like to call them, where we go get 7 wins or something like that and get a middling draft pick. Honestly, I'm kind of ready to get to that rebuild point. I want us to get a high draft pick, and I want us to trade down so that way we can start collecting assets.
Yeah.
Because that's what we need to do at this point, and we're probably stuck with Derek Carr next season anyways. So we need to build up draft picks, get assets, but that is definitely not the Mickey Loomis MO. So I want to see him in a rebuild situation. I want to see it. So let's see.
And it's not like the Saints. I know, like, look, the last few years have been mediocre since Drew left, but then there's still 15 years, 15, 20 years of great football with many playoff appearances in the Super Bowl. So you can kind of hang your hat on that. Moving on now to Seattle versus Buffalo. I'm going to say the exact same thing as other games. Not even that, actually. I'm going to say something different. I'm changing my tune. With a game like this is a comeback to earth game for Seattle. If you look at who they've beaten, they got the one win against Atlanta, but besides that, they beat Skylar Thompson, Jacoby Brissett, and Bo Nix in his first start. That's not really a who's who of who you've beaten. And Josh Allen, I said this before. I know a lot of people are like, oh, New York can win the division. Remind me. Guys, Josh Allen's still Josh Allen, and he's still very good. I think Buffalo takes care of business in the Pacific Northwest.
I agree with you. I am curious to see how this Josh Allen and Amari Cooper connection goes. I know they drafted.
The week he pops. I think he pops this week.
Yeah. I know they drafted Keon Coleman to be that guy, but sometimes it takes these rookies a little bit to come on. And he's had decent success. I'm not going to be like, oh my God, he's blown the roof off or anything, but them going out and getting Amari Cooper, that was a really good deal for them because they definitely needed another wide receiver. Especially with Diggs gone and Diggs showing off with the Texans. He's been really good for them. But yeah, I do tend to agree with you. Sometimes you have to go with the better head coach and the better quarterback, and that's what I'm going to do here.
The fact of Matt Stafford only being one of 2 active players in the 2009 draft is such a wild stat to me. I just saw on the TV. But yeah, no, that's the thing. This Buffalo, you go in there, you take care of business. I think this is the week you finally start to build chemistry with Amari Cooper, because next week they have a really important game against Seattle. But yeah, no, I still think Buffalo is the class of the division. They did the proper thing. They kind of retooled to where I think what they did this past offseason could be Miami this coming offseason, where there's some changes, maybe management, some players go in and out. And it's just that carousel effect. I'm also buying time as I'm waiting for the ticker to come by as we talk about our next game, which is Washington versus Chicago. This is a game I was looking forward to until the injury news. And with that being said, you're not playing the Carolina Panthers. Give me the Bears.
Yeah. You do worry about Jaden Daniels already with him being hurt already. And as soon as kind of him being hurt, it came out, I'd seen like some clips of him getting blown out, blown up at LSU. So much where you see the sonic rings literally coming out of him in the video. But
so hilarious.
He's been solid, really good. But you just want to see them kind of follow Lamar's prototype, where he's staying healthy, staying on the field, and you kind of want to see those running quarterbacks adapt to that, where they're able to still run but still stay on the field. And it's a hard thing to manage. I mean, Anthony Richardson definitely needs to learn that. And maybe Jaden Daniels will learn that more as he continues to go in his career. It's kind of like that hard knock scene where Caleb Williams was sitting there sliding on the water slide. Gotta
Yeah.
learn to slide. Gotta learn to get down. Gotta learn to get keep your body going, because it's a long season and you gotta play for another one. Maybe in the postseason you try and push the boundaries, or in those really big games that you need to win. That's the time for stuff like that. But you gotta learn to take your shots or not take them in some cases. But yeah, I would definitely go with the Bears, just to see where I need to actually sit down and watch a Bears game so that way I can actually watch Caleb Williams. I need to do that because I was definitely high on the Bears going into the season.
I was always kind of like proceed with caution with the Bears. I just, like I've said so many more times, if it is Marcus Mariota starting, if you're the Bears, you can't let him do what he did last week because he looked really good. And then again, like I said, it was Carolina. Vegas and Kansas City. I'm going to say this right now. Kansas City wins, but I wouldn't be shocked to see Vegas cover the number, 9.5 points. I know it's a playing with fire bet, but I think it's one of those things where, ooh, nice pass to Byron Murphy is having a game for the Vikings tonight. This is the kind of game where if you're Vegas, there's not a lot to prove. And if you're Kansas City, which I want to buy into Kansas City, I do. It's just the model they're playing with. I don't know how good. And also the fact, too, I don't think they've thrown an offensive touchdown in, I think, almost a month.
Yeah, it's definitely crazy.
I just
Because
don't know
they're
how.
kind of
I just want to see if it's successful, because when they play, like they have Buffalo in a few weeks, and that's the game where, you're going to be tested.
Mhm. It kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about kind of the league zigging when the others are zagging. Um, Andy Reid, to his credit, he's they just find ways to win, and that's what the
Yeah.
good teams do. And they've, I mean, Pacheco got hurt. They signed freaking Kareem Hunt off the street, and he's sitting there putting up numbers. They've got a good run scheme going on where they know that, hey, our offensive weapons aren't necessarily what they want to be, and maybe they're load managing Travis Kelsey because he's not really necessarily a young guy at this point.
He's 35.
And he's not really a young tight end at this point, which, I mean, he's only 5 years older than me, so I'm sitting here calling myself ancient or something.
Sam.
Yeah. So that's kind of a random funny thing is I'll sit there in Dynasty and say, "Oh, this running back's 26. He's old," and I'm sitting there like I'm 30 and I'm freaking.
It's like Alvin
What am
Kamara
I
like
then?
28.
Yeah, it's like
He's
this guy's
old.
so ancient. I don't want him on my team anymore. I want 21-year-old running backs. That's like what everyone wants in Dynasty.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Chiefs just find a way to win, even with their offensive weapons not necessarily where they are. The Rashee Rice injury being really bad because it seemed like he was going to be a stud, but he gets hurt. Travis Kelsey isn't getting any younger. You do wonder if Xavier Worthy will become anything for them, but until they get to that point where they need to rely on him, um, they're going to be leaning on the run game, and that's where it looks like things need to go. But with Patrick Mahomes, you never know when he will start going off. But it's kind of been the theme for him is he's not really necessarily been just putting up these gaudy numbers anymore.
It's since Bieniemy left, if you have noticed that.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely been a trend there. Which, I mean, there could be some smoke to that. But definitely, I think it has something to do with the personnel um, that they have, and just they're finding ways to win with what they have. And that's definitely what you have to do whenever you do have those huge contracts.
Yeah, they're finally starting to they're really good at drafting. They're finally starting to get into everything. It's so funny right now. I'm trying to figure out if there's a flag, this touchdown. Oh, never mind. Touchdown for the Rams. The thing with Kansas City too, and I'll say this well, Patrick Mahomes. So there's two things. One, you know how there was that run last Sunday where he like dipsy doodled around and he got like 30 yards or something like that. It was a 29 or 30. And everyone's like, oh, look at this run. And I'm just like, the players are kind of afraid to hit him because one, he's either going to step out of bounds and you're going to get a penalty, or two, you're going to break your ankles and you're going to end up on Sports Center for wrong reasons. The other thing too is Antonio Pierce made some comments apparently wanting to play basically kind of like if you've seen The Last Dance, what happened to what the bad boy Pistons did to Michael Jordan. He basically mentioned that, and then it was Warren Sharp, the man with the mustache, who pulled up today that it's Adrian Hill refereeing that game, and Adrian Hill's thrown, I think, the first or second most flags for roughing the passer in the NFL. So the NFL's kind of like, it's like one of those things where like the NFL's, it's not coincidental that they're doing this. I'm not throwing out conspiracy theories. I'm just saying stuff like that happens. But like I said, Kansas City extends their win streak.
Yep.
But I think Vegas has a chance to keep it close because Las Vegas knows how to play these guys. It wasn't even 10 months ago. They embarrassed them on Christmas Day in Kansas City, even though this game's in Vegas. And the last time Patrick was in Vegas, it was a very good day for him. Next up, Denver versus Carolina. The spread is -10, but I'm going to go with Denver because of what Sean Payton knows with this team. Sean Payton's played this team for many years. I know it's a different system. It's all this other stuff. But Sean Payton, I'm going to trust Sean Payton because last week too, I picked the Broncos against the Saints, and also I have Javonte Williams in the league. It made me happy. So I'm just going to say that. If Denver's, same thing too with Denver, you can't get like embarrassed the Saints and then get embarrassed by the Panthers.
I think Jonathan Brooks might be playing this week, so that might be an interesting kind of side story to see how he does since he was like the first running back taken. I know Chubb has had some pretty decent success. They've done a little bit better since Andy Dalton took over, but he's going to be out this week. Glad he's okay after him and his family got in that car crash.
He is limited, by the way, Jonathan Brooks. He is practicing. He's still on that non-injured list, but he is practicing, but he's just doing a limited capacity. So we'll see if he plays Sunday. I stashed him in a league. That's all.
Yeah, I heard it's a possibility that he's going to play. But yeah, I mean, Bryce Young is going to be out there playing. If I'm a Panthers fan, I want to see something out of Bryce Young at this point, but you just never know. The couple games that I've seen him play, he just looks so. It just looks like he's kind of just going through the motions. It's like he's not even there. It's like he's a robot, honestly. I did see this one play after he had thrown an interception. He like started breaking down, crying almost, and I kind of felt bad for the guy. He's in a bad situation. The Panthers just are not good right now. And I mean, the Broncos are kind of in that spot where they're kind of eating this cap because I mean, they had the Russell Wilson thing that was a lot of cap to hit. So they're kind of eating it up this season. That's why you really don't see like
Walmart money, baby.
Yeah, you see all of these cheap wide receivers playing for them, or these rookie wide receivers. Troy Franklin was doing good last week. Bailey had a couple good, had like one good game, and then he was out for a while. Then he came back. I expected him to be pretty good last week, but it was mainly Troy Franklin. But yeah, I mean, I'll be honest though. When I was watching the Broncos game, Bo Nix did not really look that good last week. It was just the fact that Javonte Williams was able to go out there and have a good game. I mean, Bo Nix had one of the worst passes I've seen. He had two guys wide open. One that was in the end zone and one that was about at the 10-yard line. That ball went right between them. I was just like, wow. If there was a good quarterback playing against us last week, we would have lost by like another 30 points probably. But that being said, I'm going to go with the Broncos just because I don't really have much faith in Bryce Young and the Panthers.
Here's my thing with the Broncos. I think they'll beat the teams that are bad, but then they'll lose to the good teams.
I agree with that.
Although the Jets game for them was a bit of an anomaly, but if you look at their wins this year, or if you look at some of their losses, they lost to Seattle, they lost to Pittsburgh. They had to come back to earth. Who did they lose? They had a game the game 2 weeks ago. They lost. I'm really blanking on who they played in that game. Who did the? Oh yeah, the Chargers. Well, the Chargers went in there, and then the Chargers beat them. So that's the thing. I think like if the Broncos want to be taken somewhat seriously, you win this game. If you lose this game, no one's going to take you seriously.
No.
Sunday Night Football, Cowboys Niners, classic rivalry renewed. I know everyone wanted Commanders and Bears in this spot, but this game was not getting flexed out. This game, the only reason this game got flexed out was 4 years ago. Both teams are terrible, and it happened. You don't flex the Cowboys out of prime time. I'm going to say this right now. I know Dallas got embarrassed 2 weeks ago. Big Rat said this a couple weeks ago on the show where this game for conference standings for San Francisco wanting to, win the West, for them to wanting to get back into the position they should be, or not they should be, but the position that they should. Actually, no, not the position they want to be in, the position they should be in. Because look, San Francisco's won this division so consistently. If you're San Francisco, you go out there and win this game. Dallas, we all know the tires are kind of the tires are falling off the tracks. This just no one knows what to think anymore. And also the fact that they've just I know this is on the road, but the whole thing too of them getting blown out at home every single time is just not a good stat to have. So if you're San Francisco, this is the game you're going to win. Plus Sunday's National Tight End Day too. So if you want to responsibly bet a George Kittle touchdown for a good record.
Yeah, they'll definitely need to be feeding George Kittle a lot with the injuries they have going on. I mean,
That their best wide receiver
out.
was shot 2 months ago.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too. I don't know if you saw, but with Denver, going back to them, Josh Reynolds was apparently hit with a bullet yesterday. It was at a strip club in Denver. I have no idea why he was doing there why he was at a strip club in Denver, but that happened as well. And also when I say the thing about Ricky Pearsall, I'm not trying to make a joke out of it or make light of it. It's just like you have Brandon Ayuk with a torn ACL, MCL. Deebo Samuel is the one that really concerns me, though, because how sick does an NFL player have to be to go to the hospital when you hear about some of the injuries they play through?
Yeah, exactly. And I've heard some people say, oh, he's an NFL player. He's going to be able to come back and play really quickly with the medical staff they have, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, if you're going to the.
If you have fluid in your lungs, that's going to take a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah,
if you're going to bye next week too. I think they have their bye next week. So if you're San Francisco, you don't play them this week. Have them get healthy after the bye.
Definitely. I agree with that. And I mean, they could go out there and see what they have with these other wide receivers. I know Juwan Jennings, he likes to pop off sometimes. They still need to get healthy with Christian McCaffrey out there, but Mason's been good for them. And maybe they might have something in Pearsall. We don't know that yet, but I think it's going to be a little bit too soon for him just because he hadn't really had that much time in a rapport to get out there and actually practice and everything. But I think this is a spot for Dallas to actually get a W here, honestly. And they need something because hearing about the whole back and forth with Jerry Jones and Mike McCarthy, that's a whole crazy thing. And I'm sure at some point, if they do keep losing, Mike's going to get the axe there. But yeah, I would honestly kind of lean towards the Cowboys here, unless George Kittle just has a crazy day, which, I mean, it could happen.
George Kittle last year had 3 touchdowns against the Dallas Cowboys. Just something of note. Right there, I just think that, look, when I look at it, I trust San Francisco more to have a bounce back spot in this game, and I'm going to go with them. Monday Night Football, which, folks, programming note, Big Rat and I here Monday night. Why? Pittsburgh Steelers host the New York Giants. New York Giants have Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones in prime time. We know it. Very demure. So, yeah, Big Rat and I will be here chatting it up, talking about all week 8 while we react to the game. I'm going to keep this next game short and sweet, too. Just, Pittsburgh, I have nothing else to say. I think the Giants, without Andrew Thomas, they weren't that good of a team to begin with. But without Andrew Thomas, same thing too happened. Like you're saying, you lose Eric McCoy, Jalen Carter eats his lunch. They did the same thing last Sunday. The Giants O-line got caved in, and your reward, you have playing a solid Eagles D-line, you're going to play a very good, probably one of the best defensive players in football in TJ Watt. So have fun with that. Also, I'll say this too. I don't think Russell Wilson was ever bad. I just think Denver was a bad situation for him because Mike Wilson lets Russ cook properly. I always said that Sean Payton wanted to have Russ install the plays beforehand. Meanwhile, Mike Tomlin lets him do his thing. And also, I'll say this too: for all the craziness that's gone on with the Steelers, we really need a documentary once Mike Tomlin leaves of how the hell did he keep everything normal, especially with a couple of players.
Yeah, I was just looking at this. Jesus Christ, the Jets have a lot of primetime games. I was just curious because
Texans.
Yeah, I mean, Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football,
Oh
Monday
my
Night
God, that
Football,
was a
Sunday
nice
Night
catch.
Football, Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football. So they have 6 primetime games.
I
Jesus
think that
Christ.
one game gets flexed.
It has to.
That Jets
I
Colts game.
was just thinking that since you said, of course, it's the tradition. Daniel Jones on prime time equals a Big Rat appearance on the podcast. I'm like, didn't that just happen? And then I saw that they had like 2 primetime games already this season. So what's up? I mean, I know it's New York, blah 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 blah. I know it's Aaron Rodgers, blah blah blah. But the Giants getting 3 primetime games, that's wild.
They had a Thursday.
Anyways,
They had a. So I'm going to touch on that. So they had a Thursday nighter against Dallas, which it always seems like one of a Dallas game against either New York or Philadelphia always makes its way to primetime every year. Then they had one against Cincinnati, which I think people just kind of saw as like, hey, put it on here, why not? And then this one right here, Giants Steelers. It's 2 classic franchises that you can't go wrong with. I'm looking ahead right now, and Pittsburgh plays Baltimore that same week as the other game. Or here's even another one too, if they really want to get fun with it. The Packers play the Bears that week when the Jets play the Colts. You want a game to flex in the Sunday Night Football. You finally have a Packers-Bears game where there's a lot more on the line.
yeah, that would be a good one to flex in. I would like that.
I'm
I
only
like
saying that too just because, look, Colts just got flexed into prime time, and if the Jets lose this Sunday, or even if they lose this game or Houston, and they're sitting at 3, they're 2-5 right now. If they're sitting at 3-6, you can't have a 3-win team in November be on prime time on Sunday Night Football. I'm sorry, Sunday Night Football is reserved for the good teams. That's why look, Jacksonville and Philly just got flexed out for Indy, Minnesota, which I didn't really understand, but I'm not the one making those decisions.
Yeah, that is a little odd. I guess Minnesota's just a good story, and they want a Minnesota game in there on prime time.
Brian Flores'
Um,
defense against an Anthony Richardson offense is not going to be a fun time if you're a Colts fan.
no, not at all. But yeah, going back to that game though, yeah, I would definitely go with the Steelers. They've definitely put Justin Fields and Russ in positions to succeed, and that's the positions of a good franchise. And that is definitely the if there's a franchise out there that has continuity, it's definitely the Steelers. Just continuously a winning franchise. That's what they have to their credit. But yeah, I don't really have much else to say about that then besides just say, hey, Steelers. Malik Neighbors was already getting mad in some post game interview I saw, and yeah, he really popped off the first couple games, but um, you do really wonder where the Giants are going to end up going once this season's over. I'm sure they'll be looking at a new quarterback possibly, but with them giving that Daniel Jones deal, sometimes whenever you end up paying the quarterback, you're kind of stuck in some
There's an
cases.
out after this season.
So there you go. That I think I do recall remembering hearing that. So they're going to get that out in and maybe go and get another quarterback.
Yeah. That's one thing I remember hearing this week with that is that it's kind of like right now their contract. I think they basically did it to where this year, like last year and this year, were guaranteed, almost like guaranteed. But then next year, there's the what year they can get out. I don't know what the cap hit or the dead cap would be, but I know that after this season, they can get out of his contract. I'll also say this with the Giants. I don't think that from an organizational standpoint, they should change coach or GM. Because look, they were kind of handed Daniel Jones, let them draft and develop their own quarterback. And after maybe say 25 or 26, if it's still not working, then you bring in someone new to deal with everything. Kind of like what happened with Daniel Jones with his first couple of regimes. That's all. Like the Giants, they have a really good defensive line. They're getting better in defense. It's just that offensive line is terrible. Running back, like I know they have Tyrone Tracy, but like they don't have a tight end. And we all know, look, Danny Dimes makes a good product out of this, but he ain't it.
Nope. And looking at over the cap right now, they have a dead money hit if they cut him post June 1st of 11.1, but their cap savings would be $30 million if they did a post June 1st cut for him next
That,
season.
that's why I think that's why now you draft the quarterback and then you cut him, or you try to dump him for a 6th or a 7th round pick. That's why I do think that they'll get rid of him, because they say the amount of cap savings they have to where they can go pay someone else. like a Kayvon Thibodeau who's due for a payday after the season.
Mhm.
I'd like that Dexter Lawrence is locked up, Brian Burns is locked up, Andrew Thomas is locked up, and then a couple of years you're gonna have to lock up Malik Neighbors. So that's the thing with the Giants, where it's look, you have to look at the long term of this team. You can't think short term of the next couple seasons. You got to think long term to where this year's just bad. And I do think though firing like Dayball and Shane, they'll get hired immediately to where if you don't want to make this, you just don't want to make that mistake. Like, look, I'm trying to believe that the Giants won't do something stupid, and also them doing Hard Knocks was not really a good thing. It just opened up too many cans of worms.
Yep, it definitely did. It was some bad stuff. I'm sitting here looking over the cap now, looking at the Saints. They have $43 million in dead money from players who aren't even on the team for this year's
Yep.
cap. So that's Mickey Loomis math right there.
The cap is credit card spending, but eventually you have to pay the bill.
Yep, that's definitely true. I mean, next season the dead money isn't as bad. We just have Michael Thomas for 9 million and Jameis for 7 million. Crazy how that dead money just gets pushed and pushed.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, I want us to just hit it, but yeah, I already spoke on that, but yeah.
Yep, that's it. Hopefully you got the fan therapy that you needed.
Yep, and hashtag not a sponsor. Hit up BetterHelp if you need any help with your if you need any help with your depressive football fan needs, because I know the Saints definitely want it. Because if if I was a Saint, I mean I am a Saints fan. I'm stupid. What am I thinking? I would want to be kind of more in the Patriots position where, hey, we have this cap hit, we have this young quarterback. That's where I want to get to, and hopefully we'll be there by 2026. Let's hope.
Yeah, that's the thing with them where it's kind of like, and you know what? Next year you take the lumps, you take the medicine, kind of like the Patriots did this past year, and then like look at the quarterback, get a coach, and then spend the money. Like with New England, I'm not worrying about it. There's a lot of, believe me, a lot of our fan base is pessimistic right now, but I'm sure hashtag squad goals, if you know them, is Sophie McGarvin will be back on soon to talk about that. And also, guys, the season keeps chugging along. We're halfway there already. I don't like to say it, but you know what? It's the God's honest truth. We're basically 45% of the season's done, and it sucks. But you know what? We love talking NFL, and it ain't going anywhere. Plus, guys, CFL playoffs starting next week. But anyway, guys, I was about to say for Griff, I'm Matt Beast. Oh my God, I need to go to bed. For Matt Beast, I'm Griff. Enjoy week 8 of the NFL season, guys. 321 in the bag.